Who wouldn't want to marry a count? I'd marry the Count from Sesame Street. Count Chocula. Count Dracula. One Millicent Rogers felt the same way, and on January 9th, 1924, she married Count Ludwig Salm von Hoogstraten of Austria. Sounds fairy tale, right? Whirlwind meeting and then marrying. Millicent's grandfather was Henry Huddleston Rogers of Standard Oil. Her father was H. Rogers II, continuing the business. So, yeah, Millicent had the big bucks in her pockets to have a huge, lavish, international wedding. $40 million, she's said to maybe inherit. She could have had anything her 20-year-old heart desired. Except she didn't have that grand wedding every girl may or may not dream about. And why not? Because Millicent married the Count. In secret. It wasn't secret for long. The Count and Countess Salm got married in the city clerk's office at the municipal building in New York in early January. So why all the secrecy? In the beginning anyway. Well, let's just say that her parents, Colonel and Mrs. H. Rogers, were not in favor of this marriage. At all. You know, if Moneybags Daddy ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Okay, well, the Count's got to have some of his own spending money, jingle-jangling in his pockets, right? Not really. He's not that kind of Count. I mean, he is, but he's the kind of Austrian Count that doesn't have a lot of money and is actually an actor, and also a battlefield hero and a professional tennis player. So, no cha-chinging in his private coffers. But if Millicent's parents are against it, does that mean the Count isn't getting her dowry? More on that later. Again, Millicent is a mere 20 years old. The Count is 38 or 39. I'm not judging. I have a great aunt in this time period that married at 13. It's just an observation, their ages, and not uncommon at all. Count was said to have been engaged to one Grace Collins when he met Millicent. Ouch, to Grace. And was already divorced about 12 years earlier from Baroness Frankenthal. In other words, this ain't his first marriage rodeo. Honeymoon was done in the same place as the marriage, in New York, where they decided to stay at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, but they didn't stay there long. They got married on a Tuesday. The next 3 days were spent opening up telegrams of congrats. That weekend, they left New York City and headed for the hills of Westchester County, staying in another lovely hotel. Sunday was skiing, watching or doing, I'm not sure. Monday, dodging the press. A week after the wedding, they went out calling on people again, including a couple of members of the Count's family. Wednesday, more press avoiding. Thursday, a private showing of a movie which her husband had been in called The Red Rider. Not sure if it was about the BB gun or not. Friday, more a calling on friends. Saturday, golfing. Sunday, stayed in and went out for a walk at 10 at night. Interesting honeymoon. Well, no, this ain't the honeymoon. That will be done in Europe, of course, later on. Washington Times, January 23rd, 1924. Quote, "But after all, honeymoons have never been a question of time or place. They have ever been a state of mind. Time to the honeymooners is nebulous. Place is vague, indefinite, nebulous, draped with gossamer fancies." End quote. Ah, that sounds so lovely and frothy. February 11th, the couple is heading to Paris by boat. No friends or family to see her off. Millicent says, quote, "There's no question of forgiveness. There's nothing to forgive." End quote. I think she's speaking of her parents here who are still not happy about these goings on. Millicent reiterates that she and the Count are very happy but wish the newspapers would leave them be. They had a tiny stateroom on the ship, not at all like the large suites she was accustomed to as Daddy's girl. And now it's May 10th, 1924. Our Austrian Count is now being called a fortune hunter. What? No! But 3 months ago they were so happy. Millicent's father is willing to pay the Count $100,000 to get his daughter out of the marriage. And so had been done. Did her father head to France on his own recognizance, or did Millicent contact him? No one but them knows. In any case, Millicent and her father met with the Count and allegedly the Count's father in France, no doubt lawyers were also present, came upon an agreement for the amount of money, and if agreed upon, Count was to return to Austria. Millicent and her father stayed at the posh Champs-Élysées Hotel. Millicent and the Count had been staying at the Lotte. apparently not as posh, and they slept in different rooms. Father and daughter returned to New York on the French liner La France. The Count headed to Vienna after seeing her off at the station. Quote, utmost secrecy was maintained, end quote. But was it though? Because how do we know all about it? So again, what happened in those few months between blissful happiness and get me out of this? Tea dances and nightclubbing every night? Millicent, it is thought, has been pawning her jewels to keep up with the lifestyle along with her income, but it ain't the lifestyle she's used to, no doubt. The Count did pay for their ship passage to Europe by selling the story to a newspaper of how he got his gal. Not sketchy at all. Hey, Tiamin, what did he say in the article? Ha, LOL, you can go pay to see it if you want. I use my money for important things like tacos. Anyway, by all appearances, once the money had gone, the love waned. He didn't get all her money, and she had a bit of independence about her. He was from a place whose custom was to have a homely wife while he did nobility stuff, but that wasn't her life. Count would say, quote, yes, it is true. Millicent is going back to America with her father, but maybe she will come back. Anyway, I cannot accompany her because I am scheduled to play in the Davis Cup preliminaries, end quote. Except that wasn't true about the Davis Cup playing part, which, if you don't know, is tennis stuff. Apparently, her dad paid all of the couple's bills, less the Count's tailor, and had his daughter go buy new clothes before they headed home. Well, that's lovely. Here, sweetie, you married a fortune hunter who in the end is going to cost me a chunk of change. Go buy yourself some new frocks. And yes, I'm being a bit harsh, but I actually do feel a bit for her. She's under constant scrutiny, I'm sure, from not only the press, but her parents as well. She's at that age where she probably wants to fly free, but it has to be with their okay. Money cures a lot of ills, but not all of them. I'm not saying she had any problems, but I can be sympathetic if she did. May 18th, family is back in New York and keeping mum on all that happened. Okay, thanks for joining me for this story. Please like and subscribe. Just kidding. You really think I bring you a boring story? Well, it's not as exciting as some, but we ain't done just yet. So we've seen a lot of trauma with marriages of all kinds, splitting up because of this, that, and the other. Well, this pair split up. What could be the cause of any strife now? September 27th, 1924. Well, Millicent had a son on this day, the Count's son, 7 or 8 pounds, depending on the newspaper, and the baby looks like the Count, according to Millicent, at Miss Lippincott's hospital where, quote, mother and son are doing well, end quote. He has been made aware of his new dad status, but as of yet has not been invited to the christening, and there is no chance of reconciliation. November 12th. In Paris, the Count said, quote, all efforts to separate us have failed. Absence has only made our hearts grow fonder. Millicent will sail November 25th from New York to join me in Paris, end quote. When asked by a Universal Service staff correspondent if he was with anyone at the Embassy Club, the Count said, quote, I am alone, surrounded by memories of my love, end quote. Apparently, he still managed to get his sad, remembering carcass out on the dance floor at some point because when in Rome, quote, I do not know whether Millicent is bringing the baby with her. I hope she is bringing him, as I would love to see the little chap. Millicent writes that he is just like me and I'm anxious for them to both get here, end quote. He's even reserved the same suite that he and Millicent had stayed at in the Lottie Hotel. He is apparently trying to get Hungarian citizenship so he can legalize his first divorce, as it's not recognized under Austrian law. Do what now? The Count said, quote, this is merely a formality necessary to assure the status of our baby. Emphatically, it is not because it is necessary in order for Millicent to divorce me. There is no question of divorce. It is true that tremendous efforts have been made to break up our romance, but Millicent has remained faithful to me through the most cruel test any woman has ever been forced to undergo. Her latest letters show that the opposition of the family is weakening. There are signs that our love may yet triumph over parental prejudice, end quote. He apparently showed the correspondent a stack of letters with American postmarks claiming they were from Millicent. December 8th, 1924. Count Salm seems to think the couple will get back together. As far as I can tell, her showing up at the end of November didn't happen. Dude, you sure? Most of 1925 seems to be nice and quiet. Count Salm, has he finally seen the light? Has he finally realized she ain't getting on that ship and sailing a week or however long to come to him? December 9th, 1925. Well, here we go. Millicent faces a fight for the custody of her child with the Count, who is suing her for separation on the grounds of abandonment. The Count's lawyer, Herman B. Goodstein, also intimated that a suit for alienation of his affections would be next. Meanwhile, Millicent has her child under guard in Palm Beach, Florida, where she beat a hasty retreat to after hearing that the Count had left Europe and was heading for New York. Apparently, in these times, for a man to bring suit against a woman is extremely rare, so of course, given the intrigue already seen with this case, is made even more by the unusual nature of it. Goodstein, the Count's lawyer, said if she doesn't name her lawyer to accept the, quote, "you are served" papers, he will serve her by publication. Ouch. I'm assuming that's like posting a picture of your underwear in the newspaper and publicly calling you out for it. The Count has been living it up in New York, going to the opera and other tea and supper clubs. Goodstein says, quote, upon his arrival here, Count Salm telegraphed his wife, demanding that she return to New York and bring their child with her, reminding her that she was fully aware of his coming before she departed for Palm Beach, and what he regarded her conduct as heartless. Her reply was in effect that could see no reason for disturbing her winter plans and suggested that he come to Palm Beach, where she would make arrangements for him to see his son. My client believes that the suggestion that he visit Palm Beach was not made in good faith, end quote. Millicent's mother heard about the suit and was asked her opinion. She said, quote, I don't think anything about it, end quote. And Millicent? No separation. She wants a full divorce. So how did this part start? Apparently, he informed her that he was returning to New York to reclaim his rights as husband and to be a father to their baby boy. She made no reply at the advice of her lawyers. If she had told him not to come, it would have been a declaration of desertion, and the Count would have won the first battle. So then he comes to America with his mother in tow to show that he has made an effort at a reunion and that a part of his child's upbringing will have the presence of his mother, who the lawyers feel would be the motherly figure the judge would want to see raise the baby Count. And Millicent's not in New York. She and the child are in Palm Beach and very well guarded. San Antonio Light, December 27th, 1925. Quote, the one man gets scant consideration in court when he appears in the humble role of husband, even if he be a count. The moment he adds the proud title of father, the court takes notice of him and he can get service. Any rights and powers that Count Salm may have in the legal battle that is looming come to him entirely through that one-year-old boy, who at present is sole heir to the title of Salm von Hoogstraten, and someday may be the head of the House of Salm, subject, of course, to the dispute as to whether the title is good or not. Oh yes, and incidentally, heir to all the Standard Oil millions accumulated by his great-grandfather, the great H. Rogers, partner of John D. Rockefeller. Such an important child needs the Count's personal attention, he thinks, but will he get it? End quote. Now, this was brought up in the papers. The child belongs to both parents equally, and in the eye of the law, there is no distinction to who owns the child more. Until a court awards custody, either parent may at their discretion take charge of the child. As Millicent has possession of the child, now in Palm Beach, the Count could walk into the beach house, take the child, leave the country, and that would be his legal right to do so without breaking a law. And I believe this is why she's heavily guarded to prevent this. But once custody is awarded, obviously that changes things because then we've got kidnapping, a felony could involve extradition. So now what? Apparently the Count needs to go to Florida and sue out a writ of habeas corpus, stating that she is detaining him from his son, the corpus/body/person in this case. This writ is not only easy to obtain, but there is nothing she could do about it. She would have to appear in court, and then here comes battle. She would have to admit the Count is her husband, the baby is their child, and both parents would have to state they each want to be the child's guardian. Child becomes a ward of the state, and then the parents have to basically apply to the court to be the child's guardian. The mother would generally be seen as the most likely to be able to bring the child up properly, but that's why the Count has his mom here, to possibly take care of that answer, though her versus the child's natural mother would be difficult. Unless Millicent had led a nefarious life or something, and she hasn't. Now, this was interesting. The story is almost 100 years old. The news article speaks to the old common law. San Antonio Light, December 27, 1925. Quote, under the old common law, when parents parted and all things seemed equal as far as character and financial ability were concerned, the law awarded a child to the father on the ancient theory that he was the stronger vessel and better able to guard and guide. This reasoning is not so amusing as it sounds to our modern ears, for in those days a divorced woman was a doubtful craft sailing in treacherous waters. Nowadays, again we're in 1924, this is no longer the custom. The child goes to the mother unless things are very unequal. Custom and precedent make it quite certain that the court will not take this boy away from the mother unless the father is able to make out a strong case that it would be to the child's disadvantage to remain under her influence. End quote. Obviously, financially, Millicent has all the advantage cards here, with a possible $40 million inheritance. The Count could say that he has some social advantages, given that his son would be heir to a title. Impressive in most places, but in America? Some of us are fascinated by royals, but that's about as far as that influence goes. So it's seen that this will be a battle of character, most likely, and will become personal. And if they were transported into now, some 100 years into the future, we'd be searching their cell phone records, Facebook posts and profiles, whatever Twitter is called now. But we don't have those kind of character assassination weapons in 1924. February 23, 1926. The Count apparently did see his son, but wasn't happy about the circumstances and is back in D.C. now. Son is 15 months old. I had read somewhere that he would be allowed to see him daily, and he did for a few days and then sailed to Europe, so I'm not sure what the circumstances were about that, why he ended up leaving. March 2, 1926. Goodstein, his lawyer, said, quote, Count Salm will arrange to sail for Europe with his mother. He wishes to sail as soon as possible, maybe within a week. Count Salm will leave his separation suit in my hands and will be subject to call for me if he is needed in connection with the court proceedings. End quote. Count is going back to Europe to get back into his tennis game, which he recounted while smoking a cigarette. I've always thought what a wasted opportunity it was that we don't see tennis players smoking cigarettes while on court. Ciggy in one hand, racket in the other. Could be grand. October 20th, 1926. Count apparently will look into getting an American citizenship. Apparently, Millicent wanted the Count to produce his citizenship declaration because if he hadn't done anything to move forward with that, he could be considered an alien visitor at the time he brought forward the separation suit. And he would have no legal right to do that. His counsel said he was living here when the suit was filed, providing for physical residence. December 8th, 1926. Well, in the 1926 version of having your text read in court, letters Millicent wrote to his mother before the birth of Millicent's son said, quote, I love him too much and want to keep him from being miserable. I mustn't let him work. When I go back, I will never leave him again. He has been so sweet about everything. I am sure no one can make me as contented as he has, and that is saying a lot. He has never been made to work, and he never should be, but he has been a great sport about it. He has absolutely won hands down. He never was made to work. He hates it. He's so nervous. The movies are so horrible and cheap in America, and I hate the thought of his going into them, and that's the only way to make money fast. End quote. Remember, in addition to the tennis-ing, he was also an actor in Europe. As part of this, some mention was made about money and jewelry. Apparently, when they got married, she had given him between $12,000 and $14,000, and he had given her the Salm family jewels, which she returned. So then her lawyer, Mr. Conway, asked in court when Salm's counsel brought them up, quote, why talk about them? They were returned, end quote. Quote, but not until suit for recovery was started, end quote, said his counsel, Goodstein. Quote, that's not so. They were demanded by the Count's mother when she came to this country, and we returned them at once. There was a suit brought, but it was for other jewelry. That was returned, and some that was lost was paid for by my client, end quote. The Count spoke about the stories he wrote for a newspaper to which he was paid $2,500. Asked if he had tried to commercialize his marriage, he said, quote, I did not, end quote. December 14th, 1926. Count Salm has turned down $500,000 to go to Europe and stay there. He says no, he wants to stay in the U.S. and work for a living, but not manual labor. Those are not my words. I read elsewhere later that these tantalizing money offers for him to stay away were not true. Said his counsel, Goodstein, quote, I know nothing of such an offer. I know nothing of any proposal to settle the suit out of court. I deny that any monetary offer of settlement had been made to either Count Salm or myself." End quote. January 13th, 1927. Well, the separation suit was settled out of court. He will get $325,000. Another later paper said $400,000. Yet another paper said $500,000 from Millicent's father for him to, 1, never bring suit against Millicent's parents for alienation of his wife's affections, and 2, he will drop the separation suit. However, it's anticipated that there will still be Millicent's divorce suit in the future in France. The Count will have partial custody of their son. To what extent is not known. Attorneys stated for the record that a reconciliation was not the base for the settlement. The suit was brought in December 8th when her letters to his mom were read, and adjourned December 9th for over a month. So this is so flipping confusing. January 31st, 1927, the New York Daily News is saying that the couple will be reunited with the blessing of her parents. This isn't April Fool's Day, right? Boyhood friend of the Count confirmed this. The Count and his attorney are sailing from Paris where they will meet with the Count's aunt as mediator. The son will be sent to Europe to his parents by Millicent's father in the next 2 months, so everyone will be reunited. None of the parties will talk to the newspapers, that Millicent's parents will not interfere in her life, that the Count will become an American citizen, and that he will prove himself to be financially independent. Maybe someone should let the parties talk to the newspapers because this is a load of baloney. Horse hockey. February 15th, 1927, he still wants her back. April 4th, 1927, we're back in Paris. The Count filed suit for separation. Millicent filed a countersuit for divorce. It's like the movie Groundhog Day, isn't it? Didn't we already see this movie? Count says that Millicent, quote, has refused to return to her conjugal domicile, end quote, aka she's done some desertion. Millicent knows nothing about the separation suit, only about her own divorce suit. She said, quote, yes, it's true, I have asked for a divorce. I really don't know what my lawyer did, she replied when asked on what grounds she sought a divorce. Quote, my future plans are indefinite. I won't say I will never marry again. At least I have no one in mind now. A heads up, she will marry again in about 7 months, FYI. I expect to remain in Paris for some time. I know nothing about the Count's separation action in Paris, end quote. She continued, quote, I have not seen him and do not know what he is doing. I know nothing about the reported financial settlement arranged in New York. The custody of our child has to be settled definitely. I hope I will get the custody, end quote. April 13th, divorce/legal separation has been granted by French courts. Now I'm confused by this. Divorce granted to Millicent, legal separation to the Count. Apparently, Austrian law does not provide for full divorce, and that's why he petitioned for a separation. Son is in the custody of Millicent. This appeared to have been an easy decision for the court all the way around. The Count can see the son every 3 months. The time could be longer as the boy grows older. He will study in European schools for at least 2 years. Now, I do find it intriguing how quick this court was. Apparently, it's known that in the Paris courts, judges hold divorce as no one's business but the husband and wife. The couple assured the court that there would be no reconciliation and they would not be living together. I think even Paris lawyers were surprised at the speed of this, but hurrah for my typing fingers because, whoa Nelly, sometimes these court cases can just drag. November 8th, 1927, Millicent weds Argentinian Arturo Peralta Ramos. Dad gives her $500,000 in the form of a trust fund and that the couple must live on the interest, which is about $30,000 a year. They also had to waive future claims on the Rogers estate. January 25th, 1929. The Count is writing a biography containing, in his words, quote-unquote, hot stuff regarding his romance with Millicent. I have not bothered to look and see if this happened because thanks, but I'm good. 1935. Millicent's father dies, he of the Standard Oil fortune. Of course, hackles are already raised up as the son of Millicent and the Count, and Millicent is due to inherit. 1939. Count has asked for $20,000 per year allowance from his son's estate, stating that recent political changes in Austria have left him broke. His son is now 14. Millicent has married twice since her marriage to the Count. The Count has not remarried, though he had been seen out and about at times. His counsel advised him that it's, quote, thoroughly believed that it is the duty of a child possessing great wealth to support or contribute to the support of a parent without funds or income, end quote. This is not unheard of at this time. If you know anything about Gloria Vanderbilt's custody case when she was a child, this may sound a little familiar. The Count felt that his son, quote, would wish to observe his obligation if he fully understood my circumstances, end quote. The Count's mother was also without funds, and he felt the duty to support her. In addition to the $20,000 per year personal allowance, he wanted $10,000 per year to pay for his son's visits to him. The son is still mainly with the mother. The Count has custody 1 week each month and an additional month during the non-school period. He said he regarded $20,000 as reasonable in view of the large income from his son's estate. He said, quote, I could, of course, maintain myself and my mother on some smaller amount, but the surroundings in which my son is being maintained will require me to live at a higher rate of expense, end quote. John Caldwell Myers, co-guardian of the son's estate, said he would oppose the Count's petition. From what I could glean, I think the Count received like a flat $5,000 to just stop it with the suits. We're in 1944. The Count took his own life in Budapest from the third-story window of a hotel. He left notes saying that he was in ill health. Others speculate that he didn't have any more financial means after possibly seeking out money from reprehensible resources. 1946. The son would inherit more than $2 million when he turned 21. Millicent would pass in 1953, leaving everything to her 2 sons by her second marriage. Her son with the Count would receive specific pieces of jewelry. I would guess that because her son with the Count had inherited from his grandfather, that Millicent sought instead to provide money to her sons that would not have benefited from that, if that makes sense. One of her sons from her second marriage founded a museum in her honor in Taos, New Mexico, as Millicent had become very interested in Native American, Hispanic, and Euro-American art, and the museum still exists. As a side story, remember Grace, who was engaged to Count Salm when he met Millicent, got swept off his feet, broke the engagement to Grace? Apparently she's had quite a lot of bad fortune when it comes to love. Grace was engaged to a young man, a polo player and sportsman who was killed in World War I. Then she married the son of a New York surgeon. The marriage only lasted 26 hours. Then she was engaged to Count Salm, who jilted her. Then she was engaged to an American litterateur who lived in Paris, and he died within a month of the announcement. Now she's married to another Parisian man named Galati. She would remain married to him, but she died very young, at the age of 36, of a short illness which was followed by a heart ailment. I feel for her. I hope the short life she did lead was happy, given all of these horrible things. And the other I feel for is the son of Millicent and the Count. I don't know what kind of adult life he led, and that's none of my business to look into if he didn't put himself out there for me to find in the papers. Hopefully everything was okay with him. He was so young during the early days of the fighting, but you know he heard about it as he grew older. So we're going to leave messy love behind for at least a couple of weeks and get back to some true crime. If you enjoy these stories, please like and subscribe. See you.